Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We will be reflecting on the life and legacy of Nigeria's former President Muhammadu Buhari, who passed away at the age of 82 in London. From his times as a military ruler to elected president, Buhari's journey was one of conviction, controversy, and complexity.
Now, his leadership spanned decades, from his war against indiscipline in the 1980s to his anti-corruption crusade in the 2010s. But how will history remember him? Joining us this morning is to give us some insights into him is someone who worked closely with him for 8 years, Mr. Femi Adesina, former special advisor on media and publicity to now former President Muhammadu Buhari, who passed away on Sunday. Mr. Adesina, welcome to Breakfast Central. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah. Now, let's just begin with it. You are, we forgot to add that you are the author of the book, Working with Buhari. Now, let's begin with your personal reflections. You've described him as not just a boss, but a friend. What made President Buhari stand out to you as a leader?
Yes, let me start by saying I had known President Buhari a couple of years before he became president. We had been acquainted, we had been speaking, because I used to write a column at the back page of The Sun every Friday. And a couple of times I wrote about him. One Saturday morning, I had written about him the previous day. One Saturday morning, my phone just rang. I picked it, and he said, "This is Muhammadu Buhari." I said, which Buhari? He said, the same Buhari. I screamed. And then we talked about my article of the previous day, and since then we began to talk. Then in 2013, my mother passed away. We were having the obsequies in Lagos here, and I invited a number of people, including President Buhari. I was shocked when he showed up. And he sat through the service, a Christian service, for somebody they used to call a religious bigot. He sat through the service. That fetched him greater respect from me. And when eventually he won the election, on the night he won the election in 2015, I think that was March 31 or something, I had just come from work. I was MD editor-in-chief of the Sun newspapers. So I came home sometime after 10 and we were watching the results coming. About to midnight, it was clear he had won. Then, after midnight, my phone rang again. And the person said, "Please hold on for the president-elect." And Lord behold, he came on the line and he said, "Adesina," which was how he liked to call me, "Adesina, thank you very much for your help over the years. I didn't have a bottle of Coke to give you, but you supported me, you gave me your support. Others could have paid you millions of naira. You didn't follow them, but you followed me." I was astonished that he could call me that late. And I told my wife, "This man calling me so late, I hope he will not say, 'Come and work with me,' because I was MD of the Sun, I was president of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. I just was satisfied with what I was doing." And lo and behold, before the inauguration on May 31, I got a call saying I was going to be appointed special advisor on media and publicity. So that's the background to our relationship, which lasted 8 good years.
So, Mr. Adesina, it's interesting to see the former president through your eyes. And in the conversations we've had, it's a mixed bag for many people because he was many things. He was many characteristics to different people, whether it's his family, those who's worked with him, those who encountered him as a military dictator, and then those who have also encountered him as a democratically elected president. Nigeria faced 2 recessions under the late president. How did President Buhari respond to this behind the scenes? And do you think that his economic legacy would be one that, at the end of time, will be viewed favorably? Because there are those who believe that it's his economic decisions that are part of the foundation of where Nigeria finds itself currently now economically.
Well, what I'll say is that on all sectors, President Buhari did his level best. You never find any president anywhere in the world that does all the things that needs to be done in the country. It has not happened anywhere, and I guess it will never happen anywhere. The job never finishes. The president comes, does his bit, moves on, and another person continues. So that is the perspective in which I see the performance of President Buhari across the sectors. There were some sectors in which he shone brilliantly. There were some that we could say, well, average, but by and large, it was a very significant time in Nigeria's history.
Now, Mr. Adesina, can you share with us what transpired in your last meeting with the late president? How was he faring? What did you talk about? And could you share those intimate moments with us, if you may?
Yes, it was precisely on March 17. I was with him March 17 and 18. He had just moved home from Katsina, from Daura, his traditional homestead, to his house in Kaduna. When we left government, his house in Kaduna was uninhabitable. It had been there for 8 years, nobody lived there, so it needed to be renovated. And that renovation had continued till it was concluded early this year. So in February, he moved to Kaduna, which was where he had always lived. Daura is his traditional homestead, but Kaduna is where he had always lived. So he moved to Kaduna, and then March 17 and 18, I went to visit him in the new home. I remember that when I got there, he was reading newspapers. Almost all the newspapers in the country were spread on the table before him. He was reading one. And you see, one thing about Buhari is, whenever he sees me, his eyes light up. I know that. His eyes light up. And he has a winsome smile. So he gave me that winsome smile, and he had risen up to greet me. So we sat down. I then asked him, Mr. President, how are you doing? He said, I'm fine. I am free from Nigeria's problems now, so I'm very fine. So we chatted about different things, happenings in the country, his family. He asked after my family and all that. I stayed till the next day before I returned to Lagos. It was a week or less than 2 weeks after that he traveled. And in traveling, he was not carried. He walked on his feet. He looked very fit. And he went abroad, only for this to happen now. So that was our last meeting.
In words, as you said, as Wenga mentioned, you are, of course, the author of a book that focuses on working with the former president. You described him as eyes on, hands off. And this is a style, this is a decision. Leaders decide to lead in different ways. They can micromanage, and they can trust that they've put the right people, competent people in place. They have the, what do we call it, the round pegs in the round holes, the square pegs in the square holes, and they let them do their job. But do you think that this style empowered his ministers or allowed too much latitude? Because when we go back, the president campaigned more than once, more than twice, before he eventually became president. And there was a lot of expectation. Some say that former President Muhammadu Buhari is the president that enjoyed the most amount of goodwill from Nigerians in this administration, not administration.
In the build-up to his...
In the build-up to his administration. But then we have this time lapse between when the president puts his ministers in place. Then we have these issues that start coming in. There are a number of controversies under his administration. But eyes on, hands off meant that his ministers had to carry a large part of the blame, but as we like to say, the buck eventually stops on the table of the president for either his ministers' actions or inactions. So do you think that this style empowered his ministers, or at a point allowed too much latitude and there was not enough involvement from the president in saying, this is what I want you to do, I'm empowering you, go and do it, make the change and the difference for Nigerians?
Well, every leader reserves the right to pick his leadership style. And like I said, Buhari's style was eyes on, hands on. He never interferes. There were times I, as his media advisor, would go to meeting. For instance, there was a time that the El Zakzaki group in Kaduna had a face-off with the military, and there was mayhem. On to meeting, Mr. President, what are we going to say? He laughed and said, you are my media advisor. You tell me what to say. That was his style. Minister Fashola told me a story. He said when he was appointed Minister for Works and Housing, Power Works and Housing initially, he said the president sent for him and told him, Fashola, all I want from you is build me second Niger Bridge, build the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and finish it, and then build Abuja-Kaduna Kano Expressway. So do those three things and I will leave you alone. That's his style. And Fashola did those three things. The only one he didn't complete was Abuja-Kaduna Kano Road. He completed Lagos-Ibadan. He completed second Niger Bridge. So there's advantage in leaving your appointees to work. When you want to micromanage them, you are breathing down their necks. It has a way of also being negative.
Now, Mr. Adesina, we've seen a video that's been trending since the passing of the former president, in which President Buhari was asking for forgiveness to those who he might have committed any form of injustice or wrongdoing against. What do you think informed that perspective of him? It's very rare, especially coming from a former military ruler who was once in the military, and but I mean in the African context generally, to kind of reflect and ask for forgiveness. It was quite magnanimous in doing that. What do you think? Can you give us a context surrounding that plea?
That video is by no means new. It was in the twilight of the administration. I think it was in the very last week of the administration. There was an event where the president said, well, I'm exiting. If I offended anybody, let them forgive me. It's just natural. It's natural. I see people making heavy weather of it now. It's not necessary. It's what any exiting leader will say if he was a down-to-earth leader. In 8 years, it's not unlikely that you stepped on some toes, you hurt some people, and he said, if I did, forgive me. So it's not a new thing. I see a lot of twists and turns to that statement, which is not necessary.
So, Mr. Adesina, I want you to speak to something. It was in 2017. Because I'm asking this because I've seen what I would term conspiracy theories online. And I think someone like you is in a prime position to address this. And it was after the president's prolonged medical trip to London in 2017 that there was a rumor that went into overdrive. And bizarre conspiracy theories, primarily propagated online, I'll say that, claimed that the president had died and had been secretly replaced by a clone named Jubril from Sudan. And even in the midst of national mourning, and again, as I said, a mixed bag of reactions to his passing, there are those who are saying, what are you talking about? That the president passed away in 2017, that they don't even know who we're burying, who we're mourning, and who we're trying to do a state burial for. Mr. Adesina, I think this would be a prime time for you to speak to, can we say, that conspiracy, because it's one that unfortunately seems to have gained ground and has not let go since 2017. Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say it's hogwash. It's what hogwash. It doesn't even deserve a response. But you find that even scientific people believed that harebrained story simply because they have things against Buhari. There was a way I responded to that when it happened in 2017. I told the story of the day the president returned. I think it was August 19. That day, The Chief of Defense Staff, General Gabriel Olodishaki, was giving out his daughter in marriage. So I attended the service. In fact, it was during the service that I got word that the president was coming back, that I should inform the country. I typed the statement at that place and we released it. So he was to land at 4 o'clock. By the time the wedding ended and we went for reception, I couldn't go back home to change. I was in full agbada with cap, as would befit a wedding ceremony. So I couldn't go back to change to my normal type of attire. When the president landed, there was this welcoming line, which we usually do according to seniority. When he was shaking hands and greeting people, when he got to me, he said, Adesina, this is the best I have seen you dressed. Agbada and cap. And he laughed, we both laughed. If you recall the video of that is alive, you will see the two of us laughing. That was what made us to laugh. Now, if he was Jubilee of Sudan, how did he know I was Adesina? How would he know I was Adesina? That was what I used to respond to those parading those falsehood at that time. And I stand by that. Those of us who saw him every day, how would it be a body double or an impostor? And we would not know. So, those peddling that story, they just did it out of their, will I say wicked mind? Well, out of their mind.
Now, Mr. Adesina, quite a lot of Nigerians, and especially Nigerians who grew up in that lived through the 80s and his first sojourn as president, albeit military ruler, often perceive the late president as, a stern disciplinarian, a soldier, hardly smiling, this Megaskia figure closest. But you've just shared a story with us of his lighter side, some humorous side of the president. Could you share some of those stories which you recall of the late president's softer side?
Many, many. In fact, if you lay your hands on my book, Working with Buhari, the whole chapter is dedicated to the lighter side of the president. He had a secretary who, whenever I come to the office, he will hear us laughing from inside the office. When I come out, he says, why is it that it is when you come here that Baba laughs? He was like that. When President Buhari is comfortable with you in his skin, you will enjoy him. He was a very, very humorous person. One day I remember we were traveling to Cotonou there. The president had an event and we were going. I put on a cap, which was on the larger side. When he saw me, he said, Adesina, this cap is too large. I laughed. And then the following week, I put on a smaller cap. When he saw me, he said, this cap is too small. He was like that. He observed everything. His personal photographer, Bayo Omoboriwo, of the younger generation, wears these multicolored socks every time. We didn't know that the president was noting it. When the Bayo came into an event we were about to have, with just one color socks, and the president said, Bayo, where are the multicolored socks? You wouldn't think he would notice things like that. But that was the man. That was the man. He had that lighter side that unless he was comfortable with you in his skin, you wouldn't notice.
Okay, I know we don't have too much time left with you, Mr. Adesina. I'll try to quickly pack this. Unfortunately, during his tenure, there were some hashtags, a lot of hashtags that reigned during the time of President Buhari. Hashtag London is calling. Hashtag fix our hospitals is one of the ones. And as a private citizen now, the president passed away in a hospital in London. There have been reactions to that as well. The opportunity for him in 8 years to make some changes and some advancements in Nigeria's medical sector. You can talk about a number of things that many might list as the negatives in his administration. The Twitter ban in 2021. We've talked about the Jubril rumor, the lazy Nigerian youth conversation or comment in 2018. You also have the NSARS and the delayed national address issue in 2020. There's also the cashless policy that came about in 2023, right before the elections. But you also have those who will possibly look at the positives, that the Buhari administration implemented several social welfare programs and initiatives. There was the Empower program, there was the conditional cash transfer program, there's also the government enterprise and empowerment program, as well as the national homegrown school feeding program. And as I said earlier, it is a mixed bag. Tomorrow, we're likely expecting that he will have a state burial. At the end of the day, what do you say to Nigerians? There are those who are saying, do not speak ill of the dead. There are those who are saying, we had our experiences and this is who Buhari was to us. At the end of the day, a message to Nigerians, 8 years of an administration, a few years of a military dictator, one of the most talked about leaders that Nigeria has probably ever had, passed away in a London hospital. What do you think his final legacy, his final thoughts would have been for Nigerians in these final days?
Well, I came, I saw, I did my bit. Let Nigerians judge. That's what he will have said. As I said at the beginning, no leader anywhere in the world does everything that needs to be done in a country. President Buhari came, he did his honest bit, and when it was time to leave, he left. He didn't attempt to elongate his term. He bowed out gracefully. History will be kind to him.
And on that note, we'd like to say a big thank you to you, Mr. Femi Adesina, former Special Advisor on Media and Publicity to late President Muhammadu Buhari and author of the book, Walking with Buhari. It's been a pleasure speaking with you this morning on Breakfast Central. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.